Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined as always by Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we've got play props here for you guys on a Monday night. 8 games to choose from. We should mention Kyrie Irving is a Dallas Maverick. We're not going to be talking about his team tonight, and we're definitely not talking about the Nets either right now. But we will have 4 good props for you here. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page so you can follow along with all these game videos and player props that we're bringing you each and every weekday. And head to thelines.com, get all that written content that we've got for you guys, and you can use that odds finder tool we have up there. That's where you can make sure you're getting the best juice back on all those bets you make in the NBA this season. Nate, let's go ahead and jump into our first player prop, a guy we talked about in that Dubs video, Jordan Poole.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm being a little bit of a fish chasing Poole more than Klay Thompson here. But, I mean, Klay was really thriving off that pairing with Steph. With Poole, it's just a humongous rise in usage rate when there's no Steph. They ask him to really slot into that playmaking role, initiating the offense and moving off the ball. I mean, you don't see this much. A 26% usage rate goes up to 36%. And points per game from 17.5 to 28 without Steph this season. And, his last 8, he's a plus 38. He's averaging 28.5 without Steph. So for 23.5 points, I mean, where the odds are good, you might have to go up one more at FanDuel, but MGM has pretty much even odds at 23.5. Or I think you can tack on 5 assists to get 28.5 points assists because he has struggled shooting the ball against OKC, and I really respect their defense and how they match up against Poole is why maybe you do want to look at Klay and his 24.5 points or his threes. But Poole is still getting 6 assists per game, and that's, with Steph in there for most of those matchups against OKC in his last 4. So, but again, at home, the Warriors, more energy, more pace, more stats, and that's why his last 12 at home, 29 points per game. Also pretty good peripherals, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and turning the ball over as well. So, I mean, I think you can really look at a lot of things here with Poole. I mean, I think his turnover prop is 3.5. But you could take the over on that. I don't think you're getting much juice. I'm just going to lean on the points. I think he gets to at least 24 here, even though he hasn't really done that against OKC.
Yeah, it's a situation. I don't love the assist just because he doesn't really increase those at all when Steph's not in there. It is a lot more of, I mean, look, it's a situation where the position that they occupy is the one that gets the majority of the shots. It's the one that, they're like the position that Steph plays is sure it's point guard, shooting guard, whatever you want to call it, bring the ball down sometimes, not sometimes. But like the point is he's the focal point. He can shoot it whenever he wants. He could bring it down, come off a screen and shoot it right away if he wants. That's a part of their offense. That's actually kind of option number 1 for Steph. And Jordan Poole comes in and occupies that same exact position with a similar style of play to Steph, as it's only gotten more and more similar since he's been in the league with Steph. And I think it's another good opportunity for just the points is really what I'm looking at. He doesn't really even get better at shooting threes necessarily. He's just volume with a ton more shots per game and all that. So I think the points are easy enough at 23.5. It is fishy. You're totally right. It's just, look, he's averaging 28.5, without Steph. So if he can get 4 less than that and still, be pretty good in a game that should have a decent amount of points and pace. So I'm going to a guy here that we always love to talk about, last year's MVP of this show and player props, DeMar DeRozan, a guy who I also is slightly rumored right now could be on the move if a team like Brooklyn was actually interested in maintaining their season this year. But 26.5 points, minus 108 on FanDuel. You might throw in the rebounds, 30.5 points and rebounds combined. It's just 4 more rebounds for him. But that's minus 120 on DK there, a little bit worse than the odds of just the points. While he's been a little bit worse at home, he is on the road for this one. And I think you can feel a little bit better with him playing on the road. 30 points a game over his last 4 roadies, about 5 boards and 5 assists on 58% from the field. Really good shooting from him, and then 28% usage. It's a little bit of that revenge narrative if you still want to talk about it with DeMar playing against the Spurs, who are probably the worst defensive team in the last few years. Definitely this year. 3 games versus the Spurs with Chicago, 35 a game for DeMar, 5.5 assists on 61% from the field, and a 32% usage rate. I'm sure they're happy to continue letting him cook against this team tonight, and I think he's definitely putting his skills on display for potentially not being a Chicago Bull either this year or next.
You say that. I think Zach LaVine is actually more likely to get moved, though. I mean, it's 50-50, so, but LaVine, I mean, both those guys have been surprisingly inconsistent. The Bulls as a team have been surprisingly inconsistent all year. So DeRozan has not been our MVP. He's been, really fluctuating a lot more than last year where he had that record streak of 30-point games, etc. But I think this is a spot where you can do whatever you want against the Spurs. I mean, they also have a ton of guys questionable, including Keldon Johnson, who would probably match up on DeRozan. So keep an eye on that. And if they do have to rule out some wings, then expect DeRozan to teach, rookie Malachi Branham a few things here tonight.
Probably.
Targeting maybe the worst defense in the East, if the Spurs are the worst in the West, and Jaylen Brown with the Celtics, 26.5 points is nearly even money. I think you can tack on the rebounds if you like, 32.5 at -110. And the Celtics offense is sputtering without Marcus Smart. It's been a bit chaotic, and Jaylen Brown thrives in chaos. I mean, he is the guy who says, all right, we're not running anything. Just give me the ball. I'm going to take this mid-range shot and probably make it. In his last 8 without Smart, he's averaging nearly 28 points per game and 8 rebounds and 3 assists. 30.6% usage rate, hitting 3.5 threes. His last 4 against Detroit, 27.5 points on a 34% usage rate. So Detroit is a team that does not guard the paint. They are giving up the most paint points in the last 15 for them. Third most points per game to shooting guards on the season. Jaylen being an oversized shooting guard who can just bully his way right to the rim, and there's no line of defense here. I think he will get these points as long as the game remains competitive. Enough for him to get 34 minutes at least.
Yeah. No, I feel it. I mean, it's not my favorite of our picks, as I told you, just because it is close to what he's doing. I fear a little bit of the blowout factor as well in here. But if there's a guy that's going to get his before, needing to come out of the game because they're up by too much, I would also agree with Jaylen the way he's playing against his team. Just like I said, this is the one that's my least confident of these 4 for sure. But just it's it's a situation where you're playing, like you said, the worst defense in the East. So even if he is going to come out because they're blowing this team out, it's likely that it'll be because he's already got his props. So let's finish things off here with Porziņģis and an under for our big man on Washington, who's playing against a bunch of really good big men on Cleveland tonight. So under 24.5 points for him. It's only -120 on DK. But if you want to add the rebounds in there, 32.5, that's -105 to go under on those. I think both are pretty fair. Could probably expect a somewhat slower game and less offense, especially with Kuzma out, Bradley Beal questionable for this team. And in his last 4 versus the Cavs for Zinger, 15.5 points per game and 8 boards. Still hitting about 2.8 threes at 47.5%, probably because it's a lot easier for him to score out there than have to go in against Mobley and Jared Allen by the time he gets into the paint. So that would make a little bit of sense, but still less than 16 points per game in those last 4 versus Cleveland. And he's only played once without Kuz this season, 21 points, 4 boards in a game versus the Celtics, 28% usage rate and only 26 minutes though in a blowout loss in that one. And then Cleveland is just very, very good on defense. As we said, in their last 4, they have the best defensive rating. They've only been allowing 103.8 points per game and 44 rebounds to their opponents with a 95 pace in those road games as well. And they are allowing the 3rd fewest points per game to centers, the 6th fewest rebounds to centers, unsurprisingly, as that's where the strength of their defense is. So I think it's a good opportunity to go under for Porziņģis tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he might play the 4 more, and Gafford might play center, but and Cleveland has given up decent production to power forwards, but decent is not like blow up for 25 points. I think this line is juked too much by the fact that maybe both Kuz and Beal are sitting, and then Porziņģis is the focal point of your offense. Well, then he's also the focal point of the top defense and top interior defense. So I think it's a good opportunity to go under on his scoring here.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with that against that Cavs defense for sure. So that is all the time we have for you guys in this one. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page. We're looking to stay wicked hot with you guys on these player props. So until we see you next, happy betting.